Moving fast is the behavioral trait that I think separates champions from amateurs. I try to stay as close as possible all the time to... And then, you know what? We need to stand for what's right in our business and our life. And by not making a decision, you've actually made a decision that you have nothing to stand for. Once you learn that you can either be wasting time or embracing time, you become In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the importance of moving fast. Moving fast is the behavioral trait that I think separates champions from amateurs. Moving fast is one of the hardest things to do because it forces you to cut through complexity, create simplicity out of complex situations. A mentor of mine once said that entrepreneurship is staring into the abyss and chewing on glass, which is actually from Elon Musk, and that entrepreneurship is really vagueness and uncertainty, right? And the more you can make clarity out of vagueness and uncertainty rapidly, the more progress you're going to make. And like, this has been a trait of mine that anytime I've violated this trait, the trait of moving fast, I see less results. I see less happiness. I see less progress. I just see less all around momentum in every area of my life and business. Like moving fast. Moving fast. When you learn something new, how quick can you put that new thing into action, right? How quick can you start executing on what you learned? I call it distance to action, right? If I learn something new and I don't take any action on that for 10 months, then chances are I didn't really learn anything new, because learning happens through doing, right? There's the whole cone of learning that we talk about when we do some of our events, the Egger-Dale cone of learning. The lowest level of learning is passive learning, right? Is where you sit back, relax, and you learn something new. This is why, most of the traditional events, entrepreneurship events, business events, they don't work. Most of the events out there to try and teach entrepreneurs, they just don't work. And the reason is because they're passive learning events, right? It would be way more beneficial if events used active learning and active participation and active discussion with the participants in that learning session so that they could be fully engaged in what they're learning and taking immediate action on what they learned, right? Because that's how you retain information better. So moving fast on what you learn, moving fast in making decisions, right? When you make a decision, there's really only two parts of decision making. First is information gathering, and the second part is making the decision, right? So there's only really two parts. So how fast can you collect information and how fast can you make a decision on that information comes down to how decisive you are, right? And, Bezos once said that he only needs, 75 to 80% of the information to make a decision. He doesn't need all the information. He needs just enough to make a smart enough call quickly, right? And they've looked at studies on this, and they found that decisiveness, even if you make the wrong decision, being decisive produces better emotional, physical, and financial results for individuals, right? Being decisive on we're going this way, right? And hey, we hit a roadblock. It didn't work the way we expected. And hey, now we're going this way. And now we're going this way, right? That's called course correction. But if you stay in a place of treading water and never really making a decision, then you never really make progress, right? And you never really put your neck out on the line, right? We need to put our necks out on the line. We need to stand for what's right in our business and our life, right? And by not making a decision, you've actually made a decision that you have nothing to stand for, right? And that is the ultimate travesty, because when you have nothing to stand for, you fall for anything, right? So moving fast in your decision making, moving fast in taking action on what you learn, moving fast when it comes to parting ways with people on your team. As soon as you know that it's not the right fit, like, don't sugarcoat the situation, move fast, right? You owe it to that person to move fast and to release them to the marketplace, to the workforce, where they can be at a company where they are a perfect fit for, right? Why would you deprive someone of the right of being a perfect fit with their employer, right? That's so selfish, because, it really comes down to self-protection. You're worried about what they're going to do to you. You're worried about the negative emotions of having a hard conversation with them, right? But what you're not worried about is trapping them in a mediocre existence, right? How selfish is that? That, our self-preservation gene exceeds our ability to make hard decisions in certain cases, right? It's something that we have to remain hyper vigilant of, right? So, I'll walk you through today. There's this initiative that we're working on in our company around getting people in the right package with our services. Our company, SMB team, we offer, I don't know, maybe 15 different variations of services to our clients. And this initiative comes down to, how do we get clients who are on a solution with us that is not the optimal solution? And how do we edit their current package with us so that they're on the right optimal solution with us, right? And so we have a list of all these customers that we think would be a great fit for this. And when we're going through this list of customers, we hit first roadblock is who's going to be making the contacts to these people. Second roadblock is what's going to be the process of getting on the right package. Third roadblock is who's going to be responsible for this process. Everyone else's calendars are already filled. Third roadblock is, the information isn't importing properly. Their contact information isn't accurate. Their products aren't up to date. Recent conversations they had with their client experience person on our team haven't been uploaded into their contact profile, and therefore we may reach out to them and not have contact, blah, 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 right? And whenever you're solving an important problem in your life or business, just know adversity is going to be a minimum requirement, right? Adversity is required when you start solving important problems, because if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? If it was an easy problem, and there was no hurdles to solving it, then everyone would have already solved that problem before, and it would have already been solved in your company for sure, right? So adversity is absolutely expected when you're solving a really hard problem, right? So the question is, how do we move fast in spite of the adversity? How do we persist, right? And keep that speed and that momentum, right? And the key is what I call shortcuts, right? Is, hey, we don't have to solve this whole problem, but we do need an immediate solution to at least this part of the problem, right? And this is where, like, the magic of breaking your problems into bite-sized pieces is so impactful and powerful, right? Is like, if you have this thing that seems like a really big problem, well, I bet you that there's probably only like 5 or 6 sub-problems within that big sphere of a problem, right? Okay, so there's 5 or 6 sub-problems. Then it's like, okay, what's one thing we can do to immediately create a solution for sub-problem 1, right? What's something we could immediately do to create an immediate solution for sub-problem 2, sub-problem 3, sub-problem 4, right? And then you realize, oh, wow, I'm actually only 5 action steps away from solving each of these 5 sub-problems in the immediate. And what's a beautiful thing is, when you solve an immediate problem, you come up with bits and pieces of your long-term solution to that problem, right? We don't learn from inaction. We learn in action. Does that make any sense? So we don't learn from sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for the right time to do something. We learn while we're in the process of action. So, okay, how do I solve sub-problem 1 right now? And as I solve sub-problem 1 right now, I come up with a model of how we can permanently solve this problem in the future, right? So real-time feedback is the best data. When we talk about decision making, it's two parts, right? You have information collection, then you have decision, making the actual decision. Information collection happens just as much from, learning about things that are not in the present moment as it does coming from the present moment. What do I mean by that? So if I just ponder, if I read 3 books on how someone else solved this problem, that's me learning something not in the present moment, right? The only thing that exists in the present moment are the things you do right now, right? So I want to learn from not just people who have been there, done that before me, but I also want to learn from real-time market feedback in the present moment. If I deprive myself from present moment feedback because I don't have the courage to take action despite not having all the proper information, then I am depriving myself of the most valuable learning, which is real feedback from real decisions and real actions that I've taken, right? So, dude, we just have to move faster. Like, imagine if every problem that you had in your firm, your business, your life, what if you thought, instead of, okay, I'm going to give myself a year to solve this problem, what if you broke it down to how would I solve this problem in 1 month, right? Like, let's say I want to add $1 million to my revenue. How do I solve that problem in 1 month? If my family's life depended on it, if I had to move fast, if I had to figure it out, how would I do it in 1 month, right? All insane results come from an insane question, right? You got to ask yourself a really hard question first, like insane level. Like, how would I take this problem that other people would take 3 years to solve and do it in 3 hours, right? What are the 5 things I'd have to do in the next 3 hours to solve a 3-year problem, right? Permanently. Holy crap. If you can figure that out, you will be unstoppable, right? I was telling someone on my team that the thing that I think made me successful in sales when I was in sales at Yellow Pages was the fact that I was just OCD. That's it. I just couldn't not finish the deal. I couldn't not get the deal. It didn't have to do with my technique. It didn't have to do with some magical talking framework that I used when I was on sales calls. Nope. It just had to do with the fact that I refused to not get a decision from someone. I was so obsessive compulsive about getting a decision from someone and getting it fast, right? The one thing I could never tolerate was waiting for someone to give me an answer later. Because here's how I look at it, is when someone goes into a state of procrastination around you, they put you into a state of procrastination. I truly believe procrastination is an infection, right? That if you are only surrounded by people who are procrastinating, you are going to be procrastinating, and you're going to be a procrastinator, which means you will be the identity of someone who procrastinates, right? Which means very hard to escape that, like when you've become the actual identity of a procrastinator. How do you create an environment where everyone around you is never procrastinating? How do you create an environment where everyone around you is giving you clear answers, and more importantly, giving themselves clear answers? Well, that means that you have to stop procrastinating. That means that you have to be that role model, and you have to call people out when they are procrastinating, right? You are doing everyone in your life a disservice when you allow procrastination, right? Why? Because you're allowing that person to stay in a state of what if or possibilities without the rubber hitting the road, right? You're allowing that person to stay in a state of weakness. You're not using your strength to transfer to them strength, right? So that person stays in a position of weakness, feeling disempowered, not having the information to make a decision or the courage to make a decision because you never spoke out about it. Now, what if you were on the opposite end of the spectrum? You were like a heat-seeking missile for when people were procrastinating, right? If somebody in your life said, I don't really know about this, or if somebody in your life said they were still committed to something, like, for example, saying like, oh, I'm committed to going to the gym, but they're not taking any action on it, they are procrastinating. So to be a good friend and a good role model to that person, you would call them out. You'd say, hey, you told me 5 times that you're going to start going to the gym. You didn't go to the gym. Is going to the gym important to you, right? Hey, you told me you were going to give me an answer on whether or not you were going to move forward with my company, and you didn't. What changed, right? Like, I need answers. I need clarity. Why? Because it's the right thing, okay? If everyone was operating from a state of clarity and decisiveness, we would have half the rate of anxiety and depression. Because if you really think about it, what is anxiety? It's what if thoughts, right? They've studied this. If you look at thinking patterns of anxious people, most of their thoughts begin with the 2 words, what if, right? What if is a state of possibility-based fear, right? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And when you are in a state of future-based, possibility-based fear constantly, it puts you into a state of procrastination, right? And if we were instead decisive, right? I am going here. This is my intention in life. This is what I'm going to accomplish. And we're operating on that intention with speed and precision and massive action, right? It's hard to feel anxious. Like, when I overcame my problems with anxiety, I just became too busy for anxiety. Like, I literally didn't have time for it. Like, hey, I'd love to sit around and moan and complain. I have 10 meetings though today. I have 10 huge things that I've already committed to today. I've already publicly promoted. This is why I love the power of publicly promoting things before they exist. Like, I remember when I started my first webinars, when I did my first webinars, I would promote the webinar before I even knew what the webinar was about. Hey, big event happening this Tuesday. Make sure you don't miss it. That would be my social media post. Then I'd think, oh shit, I better think about what this event is, right? I better think about what I'm going to teach during this event. Like, I've always operated on the side of schedule it, communicate it, right? Force yourself into doing it, because I want to be held accountable. I want the market, I want everyone around me to hold me accountable and to say, hey, Bill, you said you were going live this Tuesday for this big event, right? What's going on with that? I want to put my goals out in public so that I can't just hide, behind scribble in my notebook, right? If I write down my goals privately to myself every day and whisper to myself, right, and never share my goals with anyone, well, then I can run and hide from my goals, right? I can change my goals. I can, if I come up short on something, only I know that I let myself down, right? When you make those goals public, other people know that you let yourself down, right? That's a whole different level of accountability. So this is why I've always preached in my companies, like, we need to be transparent about our goals. We have to be transparent about what we want so that there's no ability for us to run from it. There's no ability for us to cower, right? And kind of change our own internal standards. The last person we want to negotiate with is who? Yourself, right? That should be one of the only people you never need to negotiate with, right? Because negotiating with yourself is negotiating with your standards. You shouldn't have to negotiate with yourself, right? You should be in direct alignment with your true inner needs, right? I want this. I need this. I want this. I need this, right? How transparent can you be with yourself so that you don't let yourself down, right? Like, how clear can you be about the things that you want, right? But let's get back to this concept of moving fast. Like, all of this comes down to fast decision making, right? Clear thinking, right? There's a book called Clear Thinking, and the book talks about how important decisiveness is when it comes to making great decisions, right? Because it is the minimum byproduct of making great decisions is that you have to make a decision, right? And if you never make a decision, another thing is you never learn what doesn't work because you stay in a period of limbo, right? So if you make no decision, you can't learn what doesn't work. So we need to operate with more speed, okay? This is what we call a pulse in a company, okay? Every company has a pulse, okay? Some companies' pulses sound like this. Dun, 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 dun. Like picture like a really slow pace, like concert type band, like string instruments, super slow pace. Like that's 99% of companies, okay? And then think company B, whose pace is this. Like a galloping horse, like, right? Like every company, like I did music for years of my life. Like every company has its own beat, right? You know, every company has its own tempo, right? Is your tempo, is that your tempo? Or is your tempo, right? Or is your tempo, right? I try to stay as close as possible all the time to, and then, you know what? You take a break. After you do that for long enough, right? You go like, then you need to take a break and stop drumming for a little bit. That's called a vacation, right? But what I don't want to do is have a tempo like this and then never really take any time off and just kind of tread water and just keep trugging along, slow pace. I'm not tired enough to really need a full vacation. No, like this is why like the whole concept work hard, play hard, like that's what I think this means is you want to go all out when you're working. You want to go all out when you're at home with your family. You want to be present with your family. You want to bring all of yourself to your family. You want to go all out on your health, right? You want to go all out on your nutrition, your supplementation, your exercise plan. And in the moment of doing all these things for your health, for your family, for your business, for your finances, right? You want to be all in on all of these things. Is there any... and one other thing I missed is when you rest, when you recover, you want to be all in, right? I'll give you an example on the importance of recovery, right? So, obviously, as I've talked about in many previous podcasts, I do a lot of cardio training for dirt bike racing. And this really taxes your central nervous system. So, like, if I burn 7,000 calories during my workouts in a week, and I do that 4 weeks in a row, by the end of the fourth week, my body is ready for a recovery week, right? A recovery week is where I stop working out. I maybe do some active stretching, light walks. I tune down my cardio training just a little bit to allow my body time to recover, right? Now, you would be mistaken to think that when I do my off weeks, my recovery weeks and my exercise, that I'm slowing down. No, I look at it like this. I am still fast paced, but I'm now fast paced all in on recovery. I'm going all in on recovery. I'm going all in on training. I'm going all in on vacation, right? When I take vacations, even though I run a rapidly growing, bigger company that's grown a lot, like even though I run a company, I almost never check my email once when I'm on vacation. Why? Because I go all in on vacation, right? I want to go all in on everything that I do because that means I'm staying in the present moment, right? Present moment is the only thing that will ever exist for any of us, right? Oh, whoa, oh, here's another present moment. Oh, here's one more. Oh, and another present moment right now. And here's another present moment. The only thing that will ever exist in our lives is the present moment, right? So for you to be always thinking about what you're going to do in the future or everything that happened in the past, you're robbing yourself from the pleasure of living in the present moment, because it's all that will ever exist. The present moment. That's it. That's life, right? When you think a thought right now, and even if that thought is about things you could have done better in the past, you thought that thought in the present moment, right? If you think about what if this happens with something that you have scheduled for the future, you have thought that thought in the present moment, right? So I want to be fully present, fully engaged in everything that I do. So when we are fully present and we are fully engaged, we become extremely aware of how we waste and how we embrace time, right? Every second of your day, you are either wasting or you are embracing time, right? It's really like cut and dry, black and white. You're either wasting or you're embracing time. You can't be in purgatory when it comes to time. You can either be embracing it or wasting it. You can either be leveraging it or wasting it, right? So ask yourself. Now, by the way, one thing that I do before I go to bed is I watch Netflix, okay? It's like, now, this is coming from a biohacker that's tested everything for his sleep. Supplementation, meditation before bed, reading how-to books, reading biography-based books, reading all different types of books before bed, doing a stretching routine, blah, 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 blah. The supplements that I've taken for this, right? For my perfect wind down ritual before bed so that I am as relaxed as possible before I go to bed. You know what's funny? I tested watching TV shows. I tested watching movies. I've tested probably 25 different things, right? Before bed. What is the best way to wind myself down before bed? What I have found is watching Netflix. Out of the over dozen things I've tested of what to do before bed, it ended up being the right thing. So I could ask myself, is Bill wasting time when he watches Netflix before bed? Well, no, because I've already split tested, a million other things of what to do before bed. And this thing is what works the best, right? It works the best for me to wind down my mind before I go to bed. And as a result of that, no, this is actually a mini recovery ritual for me. It's a way for me to unwind my logical thinking mind before I go to bed by watching the storylines that are in fictional, TV shows and stuff, right? So I look at that as embracing time. And that's why it's like, if you're going to go all in on your recovery, go all in on your exercise, go all in on your work, like just go all in on everything and be decisive about it. The point that I was getting at previously is, once you learn that you can either be wasting time or embracing time, you become vigilantly aware of the importance of moving fast, right? And like an example of this is, once you go into the category of embracing time, you now realize, and this is one of the biggest realizations that I had, is like, the only thing that matters is the result that I get from my time input, right? So then the question becomes, how fast can I get a result from my time input, right? Okay, so if we start with that as the vantage point, how quick can I get a result from my time input? Okay. So then it comes down to results-based thinking versus work-based thinking, right? People who aren't aware of the present moment are typically people who waste time when they work, because they don't understand the consequences of wasting time, because they're not aware of the fact that they're even wasting time, right? So once you become aware of the fact of when you're wasting time versus when you're embracing it, you become vigilantly aware of the importance of getting results from your embracement of time, right? Okay. So person A, let's say that, one person works in, like we have a video department in our company, right? Who, basically creates all of our marketing videos for everything that we do as a company, right? Okay. So let's say that we're rolling out a new marketing initiative for our company, and I work in the video team, okay? And my responsibility is to edit this new video that's going to be published online that we're going to be using to market this new product, okay? Let's say I spend 100 hours creating this new video, right? And I work really diligently, and I show up early, and I go home late. I work really, 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 really hard, and I produce this amazing video. Okay. Let's say that video, after it's launched, after 2 years of being launched, it never produces one sale, right? It doesn't. Let's say that video was to promote one of our products. Let's say that video never even assisted or helped make one sale for the product of what the video was made for, right? So let's say that's person A. Person A spent 100 hours working diligently on this beautiful video that produced no result. Person B, they worked only 5 minutes creating a video, and that same video that they spent 5 minutes on produced 100 sales for the same product, right? In a work-focused world, not results-focused, you would look at employee A as the harder worker, the more diligent person, right? And you'd look at employee B, the person who spent 5 minutes on the video that got 100 times the results. You would look at them and you'd say like, they didn't really work that hard, right? In a results-focused world, though, when you look at person A versus person B, clearly person B is 100 times more productive than person A because they produced a result that had 100 times the result, and they spent hundreds of times less time in creating that video. So technically, employee B or person B is more than 100 times effective than person A because they spent 100 times less work producing the video or 20 times less work producing the video, and they produced 100 times more results from producing that video, right? And you can apply this to any line of business, right? You can apply this to anything that you do in your own work, right? Let's say a salesperson makes 100 phone calls a day and only books 0 appointments. The second person makes 20 calls a day and books 10 appointments, right? And the second person made those 20 calls in the course of only 1 hour of their day, right? Clearly, person B was tremendously more productive because they didn't have to work as hard to produce a tremendously greater result, right? What is the differentiator? The differentiator is A, how fast you're moving, and B, how results focused you are, right? And the thing that produces both of these is really skills, right? It's how skilled are you? How good are you at what you do? If you're really bad at what you do, then you have to work tremendously long hours to get a result that someone can get the same result in 5 minutes, right? So this is where it's a misnomer. It's like if you feel that you're working hard all the time, it's usually a sign of a deficiency in your skills rather than the fact that you're actually working super, super hard. Because the reason you have to work super hard in most cases is because there's something you don't know that's causing you to have to work super, super hard, right? If you were just a little bit smarter, a little bit more perceptive, had a little bit more experience, had a little bit more mentorship in this area, you would be able to short circuit a way to do it faster and get a better result, right? But how do we get to that place? We get to that place through rapid feedback, rapid action, right? So moving fast is the cure-all for all of this, right? When you look at someone who has more experience than you or is potentially more naturally talented than you, most times, like, talent is such a misnomer, right? Because even to embrace someone who has tremendous talent, you have to go through so much trial and error to even know how to unlock your talents, right? Like, the talented person is typically the person who tried a lot of things way faster than you, found the parts of them that worked with the things they tested, and found the parts of them that didn't work with the things they tested, right? And then we mistake that for talent. We say, oh, that person's just way more talented than me, right? No, the chances are they probably just tried more things quicker than you at a younger age, hardwired certain habits in them at a younger age, right? And then we call that talent, as though we have no control over it, right? As it's like, oh, they're just more talented than me, right? Yeah, all of these things are spectrums, but we create our own personality. We create our own habits. We create a lot of our own talents. Now, there are predispositions. Predispositions are like direction arrows for your talents, right? If you are predisposed to be to use your left brain, right? Your left brain's your creative brain, right? I think it's like your left brain's your creative brain, I think. If you are more predisposed to be left-brained, right, then you are going to do much better in creative endeavors, right? If you are more predisposed to be right brain dominant, you're going to be much better at logical endeavors. Am I right on that? Yeah. So, like, if you are not good at being high detail, like, that's something that could be a predisposition of yours. But there's still things that you can unlock within yourself, within your predispositions, to become more skilled and what others would call more talented in a certain area by unlocking your gifts. And you unlock your gifts by trying more stuff, right? But you have to try a million times more things to get a million times more talented, right? Because that's the only way you figure out your secret sauce in business, in life, in really anything. So how do we stay in a state of perpetual action? How do we stay in a state of speed so that we create massive momentum? Just speed up whatever it is you're doing in your life and your business. And I promise you, you're going to speed up the results that you see. And everything that you're doing right now in your firm, if you just pick up the pulse and you become that fast-paced business that's running on a really quick tempo, fast-paced person that's running on a quick tempo, making quick decisions, getting real marketplace feedback rapidly, acting on that, acting on what you learn really quickly, staying in the present moment so that every second of your investment of focus is producing a result, is giving you real-time market feedback, staying in that focused mind state, you will be unstoppable. So this is something I'm personally working on, is how do I move faster in everything that I do? And I hope that you'll test it out on yourself as well. I'll see you in the next episode. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.